Hola, ¿cómo estás? That's my little bit of Mexican. This is Word Today. I'm your host, Johnny Griffin, and this is my lovely wife,
Portia Griffin.
Oh, you got the name right. Got the name right. No more Franklin. If y'all notice on the logo, you got Frank Griffin and not Franklin.
Yeah.
She got the bling bling on the fingers.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh goodness. Buy a house with that thing. Pawn it.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so we're here today with a powerful and amazing man of God. I'm going to give him, as we always do, the ability to talk about himself and talk about his ministry and his church before we dive in. But Pastor Mike is special to me for a couple different reasons. If you know my story, I did ministry for a long time, served a lot of mighty men for a long time, and then jumped out there for 2 years to do a church. It did not launch. And he allowed me, after that kind of didn't launch, he allowed me to lick my wounds for a couple months in his church and get strong. And he welcomed me and he loved me. And I just appreciate him so much. The ministry is strong. The word is strong. And please give a big like for Pastor Mike Brown.
Bless you, sir.
Thank you.
Good to be here with you and your wife. Before I say anything about myself, how long y'all been married?
3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks. Okay, so that's why we still teetering between the. Okay,
We're still announcing. We're still getting stuff together.
listen, it's gonna take a while. I've been there as a pastor. I've married couples. Let's say there's been a family or a person I've been known for a long time, a female, and she gets married, and then she takes on this new name, and I, as the pastor, continue to call her the old name because I'm just 20 years I've been knowing you as this. Then all of a sudden you change to this. So I've got a couple of couples in our church, man. I'm serious. I'm just now getting their names right. You know, when you say a name, it just flows. Like my name, Mike Brown, just flows. So, you know, anyway, so I get that. 3 weeks. Congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Great. I'm happy to be here at Word Today, and glad to have been invited, and we could work this thing out to be here. Can I say what day of the week it is?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a Tuesday night. Usually, I'm in my own Bible study or just getting out of Bible study. You know, in a sense, it worked out. We're on spring break.
What? Come
Crazy.
on, G.
Yeah, we take a spring break from Bible study.
Crazy.
So it worked out for me to be here. You know, I'm Mike Brown. I'm a native of San Antonio, Texas. I was born here, Brooke Army Medical Center, BAMSI, now SAMSI, that kind of thing. My father, military man, retired from the Army, and then of course retired even from ministry, pastoring a church called Tremont Temple Church. So I'm born, raised here, a family of 5 children my parents have. So I have one sister, she's now passed, and 3 brothers. My dad has been my pastor all of my life.
Oh, wow.
I have an elder brother in this town who pastors Resurrection Church in Church, and another location they call Redland Oaks Community Church. My mom, who really, I call her the preacher of the family in one sense. Dad did all the preaching at the church house, if you will, but Mama had some preaching of her own. Usually those country sayings that when you first heard them didn't make sense. You know what I mean? But as you grow older, you say, wow, you know, that's a lot of theology in what she said there, you know, without having any Bible college or seminary training. I've been preaching for about 28 years. Started preaching, and I say this as opposed to my brother who started preaching at 9 years old. Oh, wow. I started preaching and I was already an adult. So the difference between he and I is I had a little thug life. So
don't we all?
I got a little street credit for before I had church credit, if you will. So I've been pastoring True Vision Church, and the only church I've ever pastored for 21 years now, and we are a 1 church, 2 location ministry, and it's been a blast. It's been awesome. I went to school in Nashville, Tennessee at the American Baptist College and did some seminary training with Southwestern Theological Seminary. I've yet to finish there. I kind of dropped out to kind of do this ministry and get it off the ground. You know how that goes. Sometimes you just have a hard time getting back there. But God has been awesome, and he's been good, and you know, he's faithful to his word. So I am happy. Is that enough to be here? I'm 49. And I'll be 50 this year.
Come on now.
Oh no, you know what? Let me. And my wife is over here working technology, and I let me just throw her in here because I want to apologize right now because she is a Samsung, phone person, so that already speaks. That already speaks volumes of the kind of person she is. So the kind of marriage we have. Pray for us.
See, this
as I pray for y'all.
He calls me out on here all the time. Like, we could talk about something before the show, and on the show, he will call it out, and I'll be like, "Are you kidding me?"
Hey, that's how you do it.
This is too much.
You got to put it out there. We've been married for 21 years. We have 2 children, 1 daughter, 1 son. Our daughter is 16, our son is 11. And so they're at home right now, just got through eating and I think watching they're on spring break. My daughter, I think she's doing some schoolwork, isn't she? Bless her heart. Even though she's so diligent. And so we're here. I'm just going to apologize now. You got my wife working with your technology right now. So if something goes wrong, we need to sign something. We're not liable. All right? That's who I am.
It's going to be right.
We got First Lady behind the camera, making sure everything is anointed.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of an inside joke about the First Ladies are on the Samsungs and the Android, but the men of God who are anointed and chosen, come on, Father, are apostolic. You know what I'm saying?
Apostolic. So y'all ain't even got no church words y'all can put with y'all.
I agree, but y'all chose us. That's what First Lady said. Now, whoop, whoop, that too.
We did choose you, yes.
We found a good thing.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Amen.
That's right.
I want to dive into some good questions.
Uh-oh, here we go.
You said so much.
Is there a camera somewhere? Where? Where's the camera?
Right here.
I don't know what he's going to ask me right now. So, hey, you understand. All right, let's do this.
It's okay.
Let's do this, brother.
We'll start off with some slow pitches because you mentioned about your father. You mentioned about being the only pastor you've ever had. You mentioned about
live, man.
For sure.
Okay, let's do this. Go ahead. I'm listening.
You mentioned about your brother preaching since he was 9
years old.
You mentioned a little bit about having a little bit of past there,
the street life,
like all of us, or like some of us. Some people came out speaking in tongues. For the rest of us, born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Glen Oaks. You know what I'm saying?
Who you?
Plank Road.
You?
Come on, holla at your boy. You know what I mean?
All right.
We had a little bit of Submel.
Some of my roots there.
Oh, there you go.
Well, my family's from Louisiana. Go ahead.
So let's start off. Let's talk a little bit about your dad.
Yeah.
Tell me about the influence your dad had. Your dad still around?
Oh, man, yes.
Okay, praise God.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the influence your dad had on your life coming up.
Well, let me tell you something, man. In the community I grew up in, it shifted over a little bit in my early part of my life. But I remember growing up, and it was I guess you could say, a middle class community, somewhat, right on the edge of being middle class and poor. But most of us in the early part of our years there, mom, dad in the house. And then of course you can see the change and the shift where I started, connecting with people who didn't have both parents in the house, particularly dad was not there. And I tell you what, man, it's a difference. Number one, having dad in the house. Yeah. Not just having dad in the house, but having a good dad in the house. Yeah. And I know it has made a difference, a great difference in my life, in how I see things and what I am allowed or able to do. My family, so number one, just having dad there. And then having this Christian dad in the house. Now, my dad has been my pastor all my life, but don't get me wrong, he was not a pastor all his life, if you will. He had a life before church. Now, he grew up in church as well. But, I think he grew up on the wild side for a while, spent his time, did his military time as well. And so as I got older, I started learning a little bit more about that other side that I never knew. The side I grew up with, though, you talk about extremes. My father was a little bit extreme in that we didn't have playing cards in the house. We couldn't have a Monopoly game in the house because it had dice. or if a game had dice or cards, that was all gambling to my father. Certain music couldn't be played in the house because everything, I don't care what it was, it could have been jazz or it could have been soul. It was all blues. Ain't gonna have no blues in my house. I think he went from one extreme to the other. Now, then he mellowed out. But having said all of that, the influence in my life was he was a provider, he was a protector, and he was the priest and prophet of our home.
Yeah.
And that made such a difference in our lives. And I'm speaking of myself particularly, made a difference in my life. And so, I think that's the thing that even when I did stray or go wrong, because see, let me tell you something about God's voice. God's voice for me sounded like my father's voice.
Yeah.
Or at times my mother's voice, because I learned the word of God through them first. Yeah.
Man, praise God. We one thing that we said we never wanted, and it's, not to get too personal, but we were at the HEB and we were picking up, before women have children, to get these prenatal vitamins. And one thing that we determined is that we never wanted to have a broken home. All the marriage counseling we went through, some of the best advice came from actually one of the pastors on the show. And after 21 years, I think I can probably ask y'all advice and see what y'all think. But he says divorce is never even a thought. It's never an option. It's never an exit plan. And one thing with me, I had my father around, but they split when I was in middle school. So I had that middle school, a lot of what I would consider my manhood years on my own to figure it out.
Bless your heart, man.
And that's never good.
Yeah.
For a young man becoming a man in this crazy world to just say, oh, I got to figure this thing out, because it ain't going to be figured out the right way. You're probably going to learn some hard knocks. And then from the hard knocks learn, I may not want to do that again. So it's so amazing but I was blessed to even have a father around for that long and still, intermittently, per se. And so to all of those dads out there, love your kids, man. I heard some people say the most important thing you could do to love a kid is to love his mama. Love the mamas, even if you're not with them, and love those kids, man. Let's talk about your brother. Your brother has two ministries. You have two ministries. And you preach at both. He preaches. Does he preach at both as well? Or does he use a screen? So
he preaches at both.
So how did that come about that you both wound up with two ministries? So that's 4 ministries in the city with the Brown name on it.
Well, listen, it used to be 5 if you want to look at it. Because my dad, we pastored, we were contemporaries. I pastored, my brother pastors, my dad was pastoring at the same time. Now he's retired now, but at one time we were all pastoring together. We were contemporaries of each other. And we like to think of it not as 2 ministries per se, but one ministry, just with 2 locations. Like, for instance, there's no comparison, but let's say a McDonald's is still McDonald's with just different locations. So how did that come about? For me, I'll speak of my situation. I think I was one of the first in our circle of pastors and preachers to do it here in this town. We're a Baptist church, we're a Baptist congregation, though we don't carry the Baptist name on our sign anymore. It's True Vision Church, not True Vision Baptist Church. But I was probably one of the, or if not the first Baptist to do it that I know of here in San Antonio. Some do it for different reasons. Some do it because of an overflow of people to start another location, or some do it for evangelistic reasons and that kind of so on and so forth. For us, it was a little more evangelistic reason than it was just overflow, though the location we were at was strong. And so starting this location, I had some families that were driving 20 plus miles to come to one location, and we say, hey, it's not much out that way, or our kind of church. Not that there weren't any churches out that way. There was not, that I knew of, our kind of church, our kind of worship and flavor. And so we talked to those families and see if they wanted to start a ministry out that way. And those, I think 2 or 3 families were gung-ho about doing it. So we started a northwest location that somewhat mirrors our northeast location. It's something we're still learning. It's something we're still figuring out. It's something, we're still, trying to get better at. But I love it. I love the journey. And I tell you what, so now that gives us 3 different services, one at 8 a.m. at the Northeast campus, then 9:30 at the newer campus, and then coming back to 11 o'clock at the Northeast campus. And I tell you what, each service has its own personality.
Mm-hmm.
And even my preaching takes on a different personality. I'm preaching the same sermon for the most part, same text, same set of verses, same points, if you will, title, but it becomes a different sermon somewhat depending on the location or the flavor or the feel, and it's the energy and the give back. So it is what it is. But we love it. My brother started doing his after I started doing mine. And man, he's doing a wonderful, fantastic job at it. He's a better churchman than I am. You know, I describe the two of us like this. When you think of the boxers, Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, my brother for me is a Muhammad Ali. He's a little smoother than I am. He gonna jab, 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 punch. I'm a Mike Tyson. Yeah, I'm
trying to get him out of
here. I'm just trying to, I'm just swinging, man. I'm just trying to knock it out. So it is what it is, you know. But that's our ministries, and they work. They complement each other. People think we do more things together than we really don't. We don't do a lot of ministry things together. We don't. But we are brothers and best friends. And so it is, you know, it is what it is.
That's the same thing that happened to my home church. Its first name was Friendship Baptist Church, but then the pastor or bishop, he changed it to Friendship Christian Church. And I'm just like, I see the difference of churches changing, I guess, the traditional Baptist to Christian to make it more, I guess, available to more saints, or make it more so not just about the tradition, but trying to get people to just come in.
That's key.
Yeah.
Because every Baptist church is not the same. But here's what we do sometimes. We will judge every Baptist church as the same. So if I had a bad experience sometimes in a Baptist church, I don't like them Baptist churches. So I'm like, oh, okay. So we just took that thing off, and it has opened the door for Catholics to come in. It has opened the door for Church of Christ or Kojic folk to come in. It has opened the door for Methodist folk to come in. And I try not to be so denominational central. I just want to be biblical.
Yeah, one of my good buddies, really good buddies, Pastor Stephen Thompson, he pastored Thompson. Well, it was Thompson Chapel last year. And before that, I think he may have been Kojic. They removed the Kojic or whatever the label was. And they were just Thompson Chapel. And now they're, as of I think January 1 this year, the Transformation Place.
Okay.
And he wanted to do the exact same thing. He was on the show about 4 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. No, at least 2.
There we go. So y'all can't, months, weeks.
You have to go back and
time has made a change.
A couple videos ago. Let's just stick with videos.
Yeah, here you go.
And the same thing about just removing that, because you want people to.
Those things can become obstacles and barriers.
You want people to, you know, judge you on you per se. And not just blanket. Everything is. You know.
Now, admittedly, let me say this before we move on. Admittedly, doctrinal wise, I'm a Baptist boy. Now, there are some things I have differed with some traditional Baptists, but again, because I'm not so tied to Baptists that when I am taught or see things spiritually differently, biblically, that I can't break from that Baptist tradition.
What's something, without getting in too much trouble, what's something that you see?
Go.
You said, you shouldn't have, you set it up. You shouldn't.
Okay, I'm good.
So what is something that you break a little bit? It didn't have to be an extreme break, a little bit from the traditional Baptist.
Let me give you this. My father, in his retirement days, is a part of our church now. He joined True Vision Church. But my father would have a challenge with the way I did ministry, you know, because again, it just didn't fit that mold. One thing like baptism. I personally, it's rare that I personally baptize. He couldn't see that. I was like, you don't baptize? No, I don't. I have deacons do it. I have other ministers do it. So we share the ministry more. Let me tell you, my dad, again, nothing against him. That's just his tradition. My dad, we would have night service. And that's back in the day when night service was still popular. And we would do baptisms at night or sometimes communion at night. And so my dad would come in and we'd start service and he'd be a part of the service. Then when it's time to baptize, he had to go in the back and put on, the wetsuit, and then bing, he would just appear in the pool, and then he's baptizing somebody. And after he baptizes them, he has to go back and dry off. While he's drying off, we're singing songs. Not necessarily because we wanted to sing songs. We're waiting on him to dry off so he can come and preach. That mode of ministry was just insane to me. And so I was like, why am I doing all of this? You gonna baptize today, you gonna handle this, and I'm gonna get up and preach. While you drying off, I'm gonna say, turn your Bibles to Mark chapter. Now I had to show him something. Now my dad, though, I give this to him, even as old as he is, he's very teachable.
Yes.
So I showed him in the book of John, and I think it's around chapter 4, where it says there was some competition, the people that put out there between Jesus and John. It says that Jesus baptized more disciples than John. And then in parentheses, it says, though Jesus didn't baptize himself, his disciples did. Yeah. When I read that, I was free.
That was it.
I was free. So that's one of those kind of things, or even communion. I don't necessarily lead communion. I do, but I don't always, because again, even the way our ministry is set up now, I don't. But have ordained people who will lead. And yes, here's what I do. I'll come up and I'll stand in line like a regular minister or deacon and receive the communion that this other person is leading. Because I believe in shared ministry. I believe in shared ministry. I'm really this guy who struggles with the limelight at times. Yeah. And if I'm not really doing the thing I'm called to do, I don't need the flashing thing behind me. So I'm gonna sit still and be quiet or do what I need to do in worship until it's time for me to do what I know I'm gifted to do. And so, but I try to share the ministry as much as I can.
Man, that really walks us into one of our two questions, main questions. I say main questions, but one of our two questions that we were kind of thinking about and meditating on all day today. And I think it's amazing, for one, that you don't feel the need to have the limelight.
No, I think it's dangerous.
I do too. I think it hinders a lot of great ministers, and it hinders a lot of great ministries. And in an age where, we're surrounded by technology, you can flip on a device and be in front of thousands of people. I mean, we've had, not bragging, but just saying we've had, 29,000 views in like a week or something.
Wow.
And so you say, what? And that doesn't happen there all the time. But there's some topic or something that hits people. Like we did a topic, should pastors get paid? So everybody's like, oh.
Absolutely.
So of course everybody's like, oh yeah. So, it's hit or miss, but, and if we boost it or if we don't boost it or whatever.
Sure.
You mentioned the limelight, and we talked about having multiple churches. One of the questions that we were kind of thinking on, I was like, man, this would be great to hear it from a powerful man of God and powerful man of God with two churches. So there's a couple evangelism models when it comes to spreading the gospel. The kind of the three big right now, I would say, and correct me if you have a fourth, fifth, or sixth. I'm sure that there's hundreds most likely, but I'll tell you the three largest is one church, multiple locations, in the sense you have 2, 3, 4 locations like Stephen Furtick or like
even in our town,
where people are. There's one preacher. They put screens up everywhere, and that one preacher preaches. They have every place has its own choir, its own ushers, its own deacons, but there's the screens. The other is where the pastor actually just drives to the different locations, or flies, or some cases.
That's what I'm doing.
And preaches. And then the third is church planting, where they're like, okay, once this congregation has passed 300 people, we're taking 50 people and y'all are going somewhere, right? With a new pastor, and Stephen Furtick does that as well. He did it with Mark Driscoll, and they had a coalition of just planting churches. And that church would technically still be a part of it. So I guess the finances and the support, and they pay the bills, maybe pay the pastor. And if they could grow, I guess, to a certain size, they would, in sustainable size, they would become autonomous, which means they'd be their own, deal. I would love to get your view on evangelism and expansion. And I don't want to taint your view with my view,
Okay.
So let me get what you think about it.
Those three models?
Those three models.
I think they all three have their place.
Mm-hmm.
I will not be critical of one over the other. I think it's just how you're led to do it. I think there's a place for all three. Now, I would say this. I do the travel from one campus to the other. If we had more dollars, I might not.
Mm-hmm.
I might be more efficient with the video. Now, the video, you know, that's a blessing and a burden at the same time for this church and this new millennium. I think I still believe in the assembly.
Yeah.
With bodies in the place. I think the screens, the streaming, and all of that should be, you know, when you can't make it to the place.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm saying though, when we use the screens a lot, that gets us used to the screen.
Yeah.
And so it may get you used to not even coming to the campus to see the screen. It may get you used to staying at home to see the screen.
The screen is the screen.
Because the screen, after a while, screen is a screen.
Yeah.
Now, but then again, let's be honest. In the 70s or 60s, 70s, 80s, the televangelists got us used to that anyway.
Yeah.
The Billy Grahams
yeah.
of the day and the the fella out in Tulsa, Oklahoma and Schuler. So we got used to television, watching the church on television anyway. So it has its pros and its cons, but I think they all have their place. I'm not critical of any form of evangelism. I think it has its place.
Yeah.
No, I was about to say it's almost similar to how, you know, when you have your Bible on your phone compared to your Bible in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's almost like you got to be careful not to forget the tangible of the Bible, your sword. You have the actual Bible compared to being on your phone. There's so many distractions, so many this, so many that. I think if you go too far from some tradition as far as the Bible, the word itself, is still good. Like you still need that foundation. And I think like you were talking about the assembly of people, it's a difference between a presence like in person compared to if I'm on the phone with somebody or I'm like video chatting. You know, I see them, but they're not physically here. I can't hug them. I can't, you know, cry on their shoulders. So I think it's the bodies, the presence of people. It's a different feeling.
I would agree with that 100%. And I noticed that even you bring up reading the Bible, I handle the Bible different when it's a Bible than when it's on my phone. Normally, when it's on my phone, I'm searching for a quick text. I got to say something or I need something real quick or turn to Mark 5 and I just use my phone versus when I'm sitting here or, you know, in my studio and I'm reading a hardback. I don't know, something about that being tangible that makes it feel more real, feel more like God. With multiple screens, I know growing up, and it's probably coming up in a small town. I love the fact that I could go talk to my pastor. I could grab him. It was one of the first things I loved about you when we first met for the first time. You weren't so big that you were untouchable. And I've been there too. I'm sure you have as well.
Oh yeah.
You know, you have 5 people that walk you from room to room and keep people away from you, right? And if you have a church of 5,000 people, you may need that for safety. You have a church of 500 people, maybe not. But growing up in a small, tiny little church, 30 people, 40 people, 100 people, 200 people, I love the fact that I can just walk up and touch my reverend and we could talk or go to Bible study and we could hang out. So me as a question mark, and I don't know the answer to this.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
I don't know how, I don't want to say effective, how good it is always to have that screen.
Have that what now?
To have that screen.
Okay.
I love we watch Stephen Furtick like nobody's business. I love Stephen Furtick. I've sat in Matt Chandler's church. I love that.
I love Matt Chandler.
I love it. I listened to everything I could find at one point on podcast. And he has multiple campuses. I don't know if he does the screens or the driving. But I think there is something about being able to touch your leader and to say, now, as a pastor that pastored for, and done small groups and did all of this stuff and had, 300 congregants that I was their pastor instead of the senior pastor.
Yeah.
I understand the senior pastor cannot do everything.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 99% of my life in ministry being the man next to the man.
Sure.
So I understand pastors cannot do everything. I couldn't do everything.
No, okay.
But I just struggle. I won't say struggle. I'm still kicking around the idea of the screens. Not saying that they're bad, but I love the fact that you go there because your congregation, just like I did, could just pull your coattail and talk to you for 5 minutes. I'm sure that probably drives you crazy when you're trying to get somewhere. You're trying to get somewhere and you got a line of 9, 10 people or more trying to pull your coattail.
Sure.
And not to overstep, but I think that's kind of the burden of ministry. It wasn't meant to be necessarily easy all the time.
Let me say this. Rick Warren, Saddleback Church, said something years ago, and I see it. I agree with it. It takes all kinds of churches to reach all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And just as I think the teaching is this: people have personalities, but churches have personalities.
Yeah.
And I think that is an individual decision choice as it relates to the kind of church you want to attend. Some people do want that. Give me that. Pastor knows my name. I'm gonna shake his hand every Sunday after church and that kind of thing. And I'm comfortable there. I've got some folk in my church who care less. They don't need to shake my hand. They don't need to look me in the eye. They don't need to hug me. Here's what they want to know. Is there a word from the Lord? And they're just as faithful to doing what they do as that person who has a need to kind of shake my hand every week. It is what it is. Our church, if you go to my 8 o'clock service, you don't see me. I'm going to preach. You're going to see me there, but I'm out. Before the service is over, I'm out in a car on the way to the other service. At 9:30, the same thing. I'm going to preach. But those who come to our church know that. They understand that. Even they visit for a while and they still make a decision. I want to be a part of this church. There's a couple of life groups in our church. We don't have many. But I think there's a couple of life groups that are doing a better, effective job at ministering to certain people. They are reaching people I couldn't reach. They are, there's one particular life group, even beyond the life group meeting itself. This one leader has a weekly group with just the men of that group. Man, I appreciate that. I love that. These young men who are young husbands and fathers, I think he is, and this life group is making such a great difference in their lives. Man, I mean, more power to you. Now, the other thing about shared ministry, let me just go on this. I mean, this might be taking us in a whole different direction. Shared ministry is a risky ministry because the people you share it with, if they're worth sharing it with, they're worth it because they have a certain level of influence in your church and influence. And those people you share it with could easily break off and say, I'm starting my own thing. And so now I got this life group. I'm starting with this life group because after a while, that life group begins to be the church, Yeah. And that it can happen. But you know what? I've learned not to be afraid of that. If that's what happens, that's what happens. I teach the people to trust God. I have to trust God. And that in a sense has happened in our ministry. Okay. There's been 1 or 2, maybe 3 break-offs somewhat in our ministry because of other people's influence over other people, and they decide they want to do something different, and it is what it is. But God keeps us strong, and it is what it is. So you can't be afraid of those things either. You know what I mean? But I think, and let me go cultural now. I think the African American church has run the risk of deifying and worshiping the Black pastor. I get it. There was a need for it in one sense. Yeah. But I think we are so pastor-centered. We can be, or we used to be, so pastor-centered. Nobody can pray for me but the pastor. Really? Nobody could teach but the pastor. Pastor ain't preaching today? I'm leaving. But I've seen other ministries and cultures work where, I knew some people who went to Sunday school didn't even go to the main service. Sunday school is a Sunday school teacher. It's not the pastor, but they were getting the word. And I think we need to balance that thing out. And I think when you are so centered on that one particular person, you need to have that handshake, hug, and prayer. And for that one person, you're making that one person too important in your life. And when that one person messes up, and they will, let me not say if, when Now, I'm not saying the win is always I got another family down the street, that kind of thing. But somebody's calling me, will happen. Going to say something you don't like, whatever may happen. People get devastated because our faith was really in that person. And so one of the things I tell you've been there long enough for me you heard me say I'm a sinner. One thing I'm going to remind the people at True Vision of is this: I am human. I fail. I blow it. I mess up. My wife is over there probably shaking her head like, yes, amen. Go on, say amen. Go on, say amen. She don't want to say nothing now. You know what I mean? Because, it's not about me, and your faith shouldn't be based on what you may perceive as perfection in me, which there is none. It's all in God. And so I'm afraid to put myself in that position where people need me. I tell them, if I die tomorrow, here's what y'all need to do. Have a service. Some people on the front row ought to be crying, like my wife and my daughter and my son. They ought to be boo-hooing. I think I'm pretty good to them. And once it's all over, put me in the ground. Come back to the church. Eat that traditional funeral meal, fried chicken, green beans, potato salad, iced tea, sweet, have some pound cake.
Making me hungry.
And when that's over, the next day, get your behind back in church and worship God.
And keep it rolling. So I'll ask you this. You talk about the guy that leads the men's group. You don't touch the men's group, but do you touch him to make sure that what he's teaching is something that, do you have a relationship with him?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Now watch this. I don't go, but that's a life group I was a part of. Now watch this. When I go to that life group, I'm Mike Brown. I'm not Pastor Brown. That life group allows me to be me.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the guy with all the spiritual answers when I go to that life group. So I appreciate that. But that same leader is in worship every week, 8 o'clock service, receiving the word of God. And yes, we have a relationship beyond Sunday morning.
So let's talk about church plan. That was actually one of the three things. You mentioned something that was so beautiful that we should probably quote somewhere when we're doing a description on this. But you said, man, I don't need the limelight.
Oh God, no.
I don't need the pat on the back. I don't need that all the time. I don't need that. And I think it takes a special level of maturity to say, I am validated in Christ alone. I don't need 50 people to pat me on the back or smile at me all the time.
No.
So are we seeing that today instead of church planting?
Seeing what today? Let me hear it.
So are we seeing the old model when they was doing churches in Deborah's place and Paul was starting these churches in Corinth? It wasn't one church, 5 locations. It was, you're a man of God, you're a woman of God. We're going to build this body. Now, obviously, a 2-hour drive for us would be a day's travel for them. So it wouldn't necessarily have made sense. But they could have walked 20 minutes across town and did a service here, so service there. And I'm not saying that it's something bad to spring out with one church, but are we seeing expansion of one brand, one man's ministry versus the deputizing of other men? A Christian hip hop artist, I think, said it like this. He says, I'm here to make, how did he say it? Something like, I'm here to make apostles or not disciples. I'm here to make disciples, not clones or secretaries. Basically, he said, I'm here to build people up so they can go build people up and not just build people up to be able to clap at my, you know what I'm saying? So have we lost our way with,
yes,
in a society where I want 5 million people at my church? Have we lost it to the point where we're no longer deputizing people? Do I need to have that 50,000 person church, or am I happy with a 500 member church and this guy have a 50 member church? It is so they can go and reach it and have those different flavors and go. You know what I'm saying? Have we lost our way a little bit in the personal brand building versus let me make a disciple versus make an assistant? That's what he said. He said, I want to make disciples, not assistants. So we make assistants to build us versus making disciples to go and build up.
Yes. And I'm going to say yes, 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 yes. Now, having said that, every Paul needs a Timothy, every Timothy needs a Paul. And I think there's a breakdown there first.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, and let me use myself as a Paul first. It's hard to find good Timothys.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I've got folk in our ministry, but it's hard to find folk who really avail themselves to be discipled like they should.
Mm-hmm.
And they think they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just can't put your hand on them because you know they're not.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find. I was a good Timothy. I was a good Timothy to my father. I was a good Timothy to my pastor in Nashville. When I went to school in Nashville, I was part of a church called Lake Providence Church, Baptist church there. I was a good Timothy to both those pastors. I served them, and served under them in ministry. And I waited my turn for opportunities. I took advantage of those opportunities when I could, that kind of thing. It's hard to find that today where you feel confident enough saying, I want to plant this.
To launch it out.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the breakdowns. We don't have fathers in the ministry like we used to, or sons in the ministry like we used to, if you will, or daughters in that matter. It's just hard to find. So that's a breakdown. Again, you talked about the whole brand piece. I think, now for me, again, I'll make it personal for me. I just have ministry energy. People are like, are you free 3 sermons? Aren't you tired? Yeah, I'm tired, but that's me. I like to lay it all out. I like to be done, almost dead when I'm through. That just works for me. And so having these 3 services, sometimes I don't know if it's really for them. I don't know if it's because we're trying to grow, which we ought to be trying to grow. I think anything, we ought to be trying to grow. But I think some of that's just, I just need to get it out. I just need to, in fact, sometimes I've done 4 or 5 services in one day. I've done 3 of our own, done one at a 4 o'clock service and then did another at 7 or 8 o'clock. Why do I keep accepting them? And I love what I do. I love teaching. I love preaching. And, now here's the weird thing. I love it, but I wish I could do something else. I hate it at the same time. It goes against who I am. It puts me in the limelight sometimes, even when I don't want to be. It makes me stand before people. I'm really an introverted kind of guy. So it's weird how what I do and what I know I'm purposed to do kind of goes against who I am. Yeah, my nature. Yeah. But at the same time, I think it's the Holy Spirit. He gives me the strength to stand and do it. When I'm not preaching and I'm doing something else, maybe in ministry, I don't have the same level of confidence. In certain areas, I don't. My greatest confidence is behind that pulpit. And let me also say this. My greatest confidence is behind the pulpit God has given me. Though I am a guest preacher, oftentimes at this church, that church, and the other church, I'm really not at home there. I'll do that. I'm asked to do it, but I'm really at home with the ministry assignment that God's given me called True Vision.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to say, I think that's a prime example of when we allow God to use us and we not get in the way of ourselves. Because I think most of the times what we're called to do, they say we should have a passion to do it, but sometimes it could be like, I don't know about this, Lord. But instead of getting in our way of the fear, we do it because God anointed and called us to do it. Even though we may be like, I don't like it, or not, I don't like it, but it's not us. It's like it's not that everyday person you may see, but it's who God called me to do. We understand the maturity level. We understand it needs to be done. And we understand God is God. And if God told me to do this, I'm going to do it. I may not like it, but I'm going to do it because my Father told me to do it. So I think it's that obedience that is lacking in Christians, because if everybody was obedient to what they were supposed to do, then I think that's where the church could be that body of Christ. The fingers could be the fingers, the ears, the eyes, the eyes. Everybody could walk in their gifts, because we've talked about this before. Are people really walking in the fullness of what God gave them? Are people really allowing God to use them to their fullest capability, or are they just being limp, just being there, not doing nothing?
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. You both are in the sense that God often uses, and then maybe it's for a humble thing. Paul's like, I got a thorn in my side. Maybe those are, hey man, you're gonna write, if you include Hebrews, the majority of the New Testament, right? Yeah. So let me keep you humble. There was Gideon. If there's anyone that's going to be the worst leader or worst warrior, is going to be someone that was hiding in a wine press.
Yeah.
If you have Ehud, who had to go against all of the people just to save the people, which is hard to go against people to save the people. You had Joseph, he was a slave, and then he became the leader. So you have these really weird, even Moses stammering, and now he has to become an orator. So I think God, what's that saying that he doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, right? Sure. So that's powerful. I want you to give you an opportunity. It's so rich here. And the conversation and the topic is so rich. But we have to end. I can't keep you here to 1 a.m. I'm going to get you an opportunity to just talk about the church locations and that. But to all the people that are going to watch this video, listen to your voice and hear us talk about the church, hear us talk about Jesus, hear us talk about leadership, hear us talk about evangelism. Just hear men of God talk about men of God things that we need to talk, and powerful woman of God talk about woman of God things. What would you any final thoughts to tell them?
Wow. What song is that? Mary Had a Little.
Yeah, right.
God calls us, and he calls us knowing everything about us.
Yeah.
Past, present, and future. He calls us knowing our, as you say, like there's good or in our bad, but yet he still calls us. Mm-hmm. He calls us like he called his disciples. And I learned this from a fellow who's really deep in Jewish studies. He talks about how a rabbi hand-selected his disciples, if you will. They would almost turn away those who would say, hey, I want to be your disciple. Mm-hmm. If you notice, folk came to Jesus, he was like, foxes have a hole. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He was really shy about dealing with folks who just wanted to be his disciples. The Bible says he called those he wanted. Mm-hmm. One of the key callings that a rabbi would have for a disciple was that rabbi believed that disciple could be like him. Could be like him. Mm-hmm. No matter, now, you got to understand who Jesus called, those 12. Mm-hmm. You can almost say were a little unlearned. Mm-hmm. In Jewish school, you come up to about 12 or so. If you're gifted in the word, if you will, you go to school further. If not, you go work with your daddy. Mm-hmm. Them boys are working on their fishing boat with their daddy. Mm-hmm. They really weren't that gifted in the word. But the Lord saw something in them that says, you can be like me. And who did he call? Man, he called a doubter. You think Jesus was surprised when he got doubted by Thomas? Mm-hmm. He called a denier. You think Jesus was surprised when Peter denied him? Mm-hmm. He called a betrayer. Jesus wasn't surprised when Judas betrayed him. He chose these people, whether they did it right or not. He chose them knowing that they could be like him. Now, salvation is open to all of us. Mm-hmm. And Jesus has chosen us as his rabbis, all of us. And he's saying all of us can be like him. I want that to be a word to somebody today, that no matter where you are, mm-hmm. what you've done, what you've been into, or what you are even in right now, that you know is so far off of the purpose and plan God has for your life, know this, God still calls you. Mm-hmm. He's calling out for you now. Mm-hmm. And he knows this, that you can be like him. And I think that's the gospel. Yeah. Amen. Jesus gives a parable about, and you've seen it a couple of times, that whole piece of the shepherd having 100 sheep. Mm-hmm. One is lost. And I'd like to say that parable could have been, that shepherd could have had 1,000 sheep and one was lost. Mm-hmm. We could have had 10,000 sheep and one was lost. We could have had 1,000,000 sheep and one was lost. But look at the heart of the shepherd for that one. He didn't say, you know what, I got 99, I'm good. I just lost one. No big deal. I mean, if I had 100 pennies and I lost one, might not be that excited about the one I lost. Yeah, no big deal. I still got 99. But aren't we glad that Jesus was the kind of shepherd that says, you know what, I got one lost. I'm going after that one. And I think that's the ministry we need to have. It's the ministry God's calling us to have, that everybody's important. Everybody matters. Nobody's to be thrown away. No one's to be disregarded. Everybody's made in the image and likeness of our God. And I think if we do ministry that way,
we'll be all right.
It'll change some things.
Well, I not to add to that, but not to have to add to that. I like the fact that he kind of chose a thug, a rogue. You know, modern day Peter would have pulled out his 9 mil. You know, and he'd have been like, "Yo, what it is?" But he pulled out his sword and he started swinging at people's heads.
And guess what, though? Jesus wasn't surprised. He still had that sword and cutting off ears. You know what I'm saying? He knew. Yeah.
So for all of us that come from those sword swinging backgrounds, thank you for the blood.
I haven't even looked at the camera. Where that? Peace, camera. I looked. Well, hey, I'm in an interview, so we having a conversation. We just allowed y'all to peek in.
Tell everybody out there your churches, locations, times where they can connect with you, hit you up on Facebook, this social media, email.
Do I have to?
Whatever you want to do.
TrueVisionChurch.org. Go there and you can find out about our church a little more. We do have 3 services. One at 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. on the northeast side of San Antonio, 2826 Ackerman Road. One service at 9:30 a.m. on the northwest side of town, 5212 Heath Road. Every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., I do what is called Power Up. We power up in the Word. At 6 a.m., if you connect with me on Facebook, it's PAS, P-A-S, Michael Steve Brown on Facebook. 6 a.m., set your clocks. Hang out with me 6 to about 6:15. So we're done. And every Saturday night, I do a little small thing called Worship Prep. When I just get ready for worship in the morning. Since I'm already doing it on Saturday nights, I just bring folk into my prep time a little bit. And we just kind of just talk about worship. And I just pray for churches. I pray for preachers, teachers, anyone doing ministry. Every Saturday night we do that without fail. Every blue moon, I may take a break, but that's what we do.
Yeah, awesome. Another good way to reach out and touch people and let people touch you.
Yeah.
All right. Amen. Yeah. So I think First Lady's going to say something.
Oh, we have a lunch. Thank you. We have a lunch with the Lord service on Wednesdays as well at 11 o'clock a.m. at our Northeast campus, 2826 Ackerman Road. We call it Lunch with the Lord because we come and we share the word of life, the preaching word, bread from on high, and afterwards always some kind of lunch. It may be a salad, maybe a sandwich, maybe spaghetti, maybe lasagna, whatever. They don't know whatever they do. So it's free. Everybody come and hang out
Awesome.
You can see me at the latest jazz concert. I love jazz, so catch me at if anybody has any Earth, Wind, and Fire tickets they want to kind of bless the pastor with,
there you go. Hit him up on Facebook.
Hit me up.
Somebody come back. I got some tickets for you, man.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate this time hanging with us here at Word Today. My wife always tells you to
like, share, comment, no, we haven't subscribed. Oh, you can subscribe on
if you're on YouTube.
Yes, we have a YouTube page too, so please look into that. But we always like your comments and questions. Please bring them. And this is kind of new, but if you are a senior pastor and you would love to be on the show, because we would love to have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please reach out to us on Word Today. Yeah. We're trying to connect with all senior pastors in the community to get everyone here. So,
or if you're a member of a congregation, like my pastor would rock it on Word Today, Word from Our Leaders, our new series. This was going to be a short series, but we've fallen totally in love with the series.
And stop our Word Today.
Yeah, to just focus on Word. So we don't know how long we're going to do the series, but we're loving it. We're loving bringing powerful men of God on to share their wisdom. And we're going to have to talk about that 21 years. We didn't get the marriage advice from him, but we might have to get that off camera or put that on an outtake.
What, the marriage piece?
The marriage piece.
I can't read.
We'll do another show and bring First Lady on. Yes.
Okay, there we go. So we got so we'll look for, we'll be Meet the Browns. And we'll bring them back and we'll do a short show, 15, 20 minutes. We should do a marriage show.
That'd be
Just
awesome.
an episode on marriage.
Needed.
Yes.
Very much needed.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll teaspoon that. We'll set up something. We'll just do an episode on marriage or two, depending on how it goes.
Mhm.
So anyway, love you guys. Praying for you guys. Touch them. I am your host, Johnny Griffin, Levi Johnny Griffin, and this is your amazing co-host.
Portia Griffin.
Wow.
And this has been Word Today.
Not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow.
Not yesterday.
Not yesterday.
Word today.
Today.